I'm Sir Flobogen Thunderhammer.
And I'm Teflon Frosthammer.
And I'm Cabbage Tidehammer.
And this
is
WAK.
If Amtgard knighthood means anything, you can't knife a motherfucker and keep it.
And the thing that people need to understand essentially about arts and sciences events is that your scores don't matter.
Do you want a black phoenix or a white phoenix?
Jeez, language, man. We're on
right.
a freaking podcast, for fuck's sake.
Mind-blowing experience, right?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to WAK, where we discuss topics important to the Kingdom of Winter's Edge, interview interesting people from around the foam fighting world, and get the intro out of order a couple of times, so that's okay. We're not going to cut this. This week we have Sir Gilan on the podcast and his squire, Warlord Gunn. Thank you so much for joining us, guys.
Yep. Appreciate it.
So, I'm going to start with you, Sir Gilan. You've been in the game for,
40 years or
50 so years now. When did you get in the game, and what got you into the game?
I got into the game in, so I got into Amtgard in 96, but I started foam fighting in 93 when I was like a freshman in high school. We did, I was at a karate studio, pretty typical stuff. And I had a friend that just called me up one day and said, hey, we're doing this thing. And it turned out it was a junior SCA group. And so I thought that we met at the high school every Sunday for, I don't know how long. And the people that were there knew about the leaders of that, knew about Amtgard, because Amtgard had been here a little bit. And they just intentionally didn't tell us about it. So it wasn't until that group kind of faded out that someone was like, well, we should just go play Amtgard now since there's no group. And I was like, what's that?
Oh, I see.
What's the draw to Amtgard over Junior SCA?
I don't know that we ever played by any like official rule set.
Okay.
We were just like a pickup group. I'm pretty sure I broke every finger that I have on my right hand at least once playing in that group, because I went from fighting and realizing that they were just going to hit people with weapons that would, cut them open, just kind of PVC with pipe insulation, bare minimum stuff. And so then I started making all the weapons. And then it really wasn't much better because I wasn't much better at it. So, but it was a little bit safer. But yeah, we were just, there was no real, I think the official junior SCA is like, you still wear the armor for the most part. It's not like serious SCA kit armor, but like lacrosse armor, lacrosse helms, stuff like that. I donated the last of my lacrosse helms that I had hanging around to the youth program, the SCA youth program here, a couple years back. And so that's all it was, but we never did any of that, right? We just did each other. And it was loosely, it was almost identical to Amtgard. The only thing that was really different was the like the leg rules or whatever. You could, it's like SCA now, you could have all of your limbs gone and just be a torso walking around. It was pretty dumb.
That's fair. Warlord Gunn, how about you?
Well, I was at a card shop. I was playing Pokemon and Magic the Gathering at the time. And this dude showed up. He was from the Air Force and he was stationed there.
Was that Goldcrest?
No.
Oh, okay.
He was he heard about a LARP and he came there to get some people to join him. I was 13, 14 at the time, so I was like, fuck yeah, let's go. I don't know where you're going. I pretty much lived at the guy's house for 5 days a week. Like my parents were questioning where the hell I was at. But he knew about the LARP Amtgard, and I just went with him, and it just kind of stuck since then. Can't remember the company name that we made up to go, but it was a few of us high school kids that were playing Magic the Gathering at the comic book shop called Adventure Zone back in Valdosta, Georgia.
Huh.
And the park we went to was Dragon's Keep at the time. I think it's called Iron Cross or something now. So
Yeah.
The name's changed quite a bit because
What kingdom would this have been?
Dragonspine.
Dragonspine. Okay.
either Dragonspine or they just became part of Neverwinter because it was 2002.
Oh no, it would have been. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
So,
it was originally Dragonspine.
probably.
Everything was originally Dragonspine.
Yeah, no. So this is really funny tie-in because I think that in the episode last week with Sir Golwyn,
Right.
we mentioned that Golwyn and Zeb had originally met.
Gilan.
Maybe not their first meeting. Yeah, sorry. If I say Zeb, it's Gilan. If I say John, it's Gunn. We all know each other in real life, so I may use the names interchangeably. But the Golwyn met Gilan again at a Dragon's Rage that happened either at the park that Gunn went to or a park that was really close to the park that you went to as your regular park. Is that right?
The site was actually in pretty close to the Lake Park site.
Okay.
The 4-H camp, but it wasn't the 4-H camp.
Okay.
It was in that vicinity. They ended up building this massive pavilion that had the court area.
Okay.
It's one of the few times that I met Shalzar.
Yeah.
And and we were actually fighting at the time in Downspear in a 48.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
That's how I remember the guy fighting. Yeah. All right. So we're gonna give the next question to Warlord Gunn first. Obviously, that's how you get into the game. What was your goal when you first got in, and at what point did a sword belt start to make sense for you? Because we know, you are as Monarch of Winter's Edge. I've already promised to drop the belt on you, and then COVID happened. So I'm treating it like you are. It is sort of a fait accompli. Like you are more or less a knight as soon as events start happening. When did that start? When did that goal sort of crystallize for you?
Well, I started the game with archery because it was just fun shooting everybody in the testicles.
How many knights have said that they started the game with archery? Is it 8? Is it 8 different people we've had that said, I just wanted to be a good archer?
I don't know, but I know that everyone who said they wanted to be a good archer liked shooting people in the dick. So
Yeah, right.
yeah.
But I started it that way, and then I wanted to be champion one term, and so I qualified doing the ANS stuff, and then at the time I think I was 15. So I wanted to be champion, and I at that time started picking up fighting sword and board, and I joined that tournament, and I actually took first place. And at that point is when I was like, I could possibly get to being a sword knight. So I would always join tournaments to I guess gauge myself, especially with new people that I've never met.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
At that point, at 15 is when I really wanted to push, but being limited to resources, to only having a minimum wage job, and I can only work 20 hours a week. Yeah, traveling was a bit hard.
Yeah, I feel that on a spiritual level. When I started, I was working at was it KFC or Subway? I don't even remember.
It's Subway. You got us sandwiches.
Oh, I got fired from that place so fast too.
Yeah,
That's a different story.
Sandwiches.
Yeah, that was definitely part of it. So real quick before we ask Sir Gilan the same question, there is a phrase that gets said a lot, and I thought it was just a Winter's Edge thing. It's not. But board is a black hole for talent. What's your opinion on that? Because you started sword and board, you're still great at sword and board. Where do you stand on that?
I started sword and board, and I felt that it was I ended up plateauing pretty bad. Once I hit 6th Order Warrior because my park at that time was Grand Duchy, so I could get my 6th pretty easy.
Right.
At that, I was top tier at my park, and that's when at one point when Zeb and Golwyn and I think Nocturne showed up in my park, that I realized I was nowhere near where I needed to be.
The biggest fish in the smallest pond.
Warrior, and then I was like,
Call that uninformed optimism.
Yeah. All right. So, sorry. Go ahead.
so that's when I realized that there's a lot of learning that I needed to do.
When was that? I'm just trying to establish like a timeline for that. I don't remember.
2007. So 5 years after I've been in the game.
Okay, right.
Okay. Yeah, Gilan needs an alibi, so that's good. Well, so actually, this is a question that I didn't expect, but so you said you had a lot more. You sort of plateaued, and you realized you needed to learn more. What about I guess dropping sword and board? I'm assuming going Florentine. What do you learn from that you can bring back to board? Anything, or is it just need to be better at more than one thing?
It's probably more about learning how to use your left hand as well, right? That's different because that translates to other things.
That's fair.
Not just to stick, because we hand match a lot, and I know that we get a lot of wins off just using your left hand too.
Right. Well, it wasn't until I ended up moving to Tennessee where I actually broke that plateau. Because I would never hand match. So if I was armed sword and board, I was just done. I just pretty much just called dead and was over with it. It wasn't until I started training with Zeb when I moved in with him, 2011. That
was it that long ago? Really?
Yeah.
Holy cow!
Wow. June, July of this year will be 10 years. So
wow. Okay. So what's the advantage of hand matching then? Like, give me the real simple on that.
Oh, for me, hand matching just so when you do get armed because you became lazy or you underestimated somebody.
My signature moves.
You still have some confidence, or at least more than what you did initially when you never practiced it, to be able to handle somebody. At that point, everybody in their mind already has this person's a lefty. I don't know what to do.
Okay.
Even though they have the same advantages.
It's also just putting reps in, right? Like, if you don't use your left hand very often, then you can't expect it to win anything.
Well, I subconsciously switched my vape to my left hand. Just thinking about it, I was like, I should use lefty more. All right, so Gilan, what?
No, I was just going to say, everybody would talk about different weird little things you can do in mundane life to help train by everybody, like the 3 or 4 people that I talked to about it. Sorry. They would talk about things that you can do in your real life, everyday life, to try and help train your left hand to do things, and I never did that.
You didn't brush left-handed for a while, or
I remember at an early SKBC that I went to, I was talking to one of the sword knights. I'm not going to name who, that I have an immense amount of respect for. I was like, man, I'm just now starting to switch over to Florentine at the time. Do you have any advice for me? He's like, yeah, you need to start masturbating left-handed. And I laugh. I was like, oh, yeah, that's really good. And he is total deadpan.
That's great advice from Sir Delos, isn't it?
It wasn't Delos. It wasn't Delos.
Okay.
But he's like, no, I'm serious. You need to start masturbating left-handed. It'll help you out with your fighting. And I find out years later, I was like, hey, I did that thing you said. He's like, oh, you're shitting me. You really did that? I'm like, no.
The long con.
So
I don't like.
So, Sir Gilan, when is it in your early Amtgard career that you decide that you want to start going towards sword? Or if it didn't manifest that way for you, how did it manifest?
Well, believe it or not, I was pretty well a proper flirt the first 4 years of playing the game. It was all about the battle game, armor, new equipment, new weapon, standard newbie stuff. But I felt like I was like hyper vigilant in prep for battle games and stuff, and recruiting people. And I was just all over the place for the first 4 years. And we didn't even really give awards out. Like, someone would come through and give us a piece of paper because someone would get a hair to be monarch or something. It didn't mean anything. There was no broader context for me the first 4 years. We were completely isolated.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until about 2000 when I got some people playing that were really good friends, and I had the money to actually travel, that I realized that there was a bigger game out there, And then once I started to get the lay for the land, it was like, I had people like Beefy that started playing about that time.
I started playing in 2000.
Yeah. We're talking about good friends, but yeah.
My feels.
There was a cat named Merrick, Eddie, who was really great. And then I had The park was always super solid. That's one of the things that made our park amazing, is that I came into a park that had, I've always been at a park where fighters are better than me. There's at least one or two fighters that have always been on the level or better than me. And I've always been able to climb, to this day, it's that way. And I love that. But yeah, it was about that.
For those who couldn't see, that's Gunn waving. He's like, yep, that's me.
That's a record show that Mr. I beat you to 10 just the other day. Almost skunked you. Raised his fucking hand.
You talking about recent stuff. We're talking about past stuff.
It was then when I first went out to see the wider AmpGuard world. I took a bus ride to Clan, a Greyhound bus ride to Clan in like '98. That had to be miserable. It took a solid 24 hours to get there. Actually, it was more than 24 hours. It was horrific. I got stopped by Border Patrol, legitimately. I was asleep in my car or in my seat next to him, and the guy was like, I was really tan because I was like roofing and doing stuff like that at the time.
Oh,
so
no.
I was a tank shirt on, and like the guy that I rode with thought it would be hilarious because I was asleep. Border Patrol came on right as we were going by like Juarez, and said, and they're like, you know him? And he was like, no, I don't think he speaks English. And then that was it.
No. You woke up to how many guns trained on you?
Yeah, dude. The guy, he had the clip, flipped open and his hand on his piece. And he was like, sir. And he started speaking Spanish to me. So, of course, I'm like, And, 4 semesters of Spanish prior to that, not knowing anything the guy said still. And off the bus, search luggage, proof ID, all that business.
Jeez.
Anyway, after I went out there and did that, I realized that I got to fight people in my first couple of clans that was like, and this is what got me. Like, this is the hook. I knew it. I mean, I was totally aware when it happened. The first time that I got to see someone that was like the equivalent of Michael Jordan, right, to like a pickup basketball player. And, you love what you do already, and then you get to see these people at the absolute peak of their game, right. Just rolling faces across the dish line. And I get to see Leaf work, Seth work, Sir Spin, Clawlibus, Arthon. I got to see these goats, man, just go to work and just mop the floor with everybody, even in my vicinity. And then I was just amazed by the fact that, you could play pickup basketball all your life and never play against anyone that is in the NBA, right. Not let alone like a legend. Right. And that was what got me. It's like, I can actually throw stick and I can throw down lose, but I was like proud to just be fighting them. I was really happy there. So knowing that that's where the bar got set, then I started looking at looking at what it took to get the awards and things like that. And that was about the time too that Shalazar came to play at our park. Mm-hmm. And he was the one that was instrumental. I mean, I helped him, but like he did all the work to do to form the Central Eastern Alliance, which really then kind of made our park center mass for what would become the Kingdom of Winter's Edge years and years later. But that's when awards started. We started looking at the requirements and what it would take. That's when it really kicked off for me.
Okay, yeah. The way Shalazar tells it, there was a very brief period where we were the Principality of Mystic Glade. Before we became the Principality of Winter's Edge.
Just because most of us were in office. Hey, right. So, tidbit, Shalazar and I started the exact same week. Both of us went to Winter War 1. Or, I'm sorry, I started 1 week before him, I think. Winter War 1.
If that's true, man, 2 paths diverged in a wood, huh? Holy shit.
He taught me everything I need to know about what not to do in office.
Right.
Well,
hold on. Wait, real quick. There is... I have to kill Discord. I'm sorry for anyone who's listening to this at home and checks their phone.
We are a real podcast, I swear.
Listen, I just forgot. So there's also a brief period where while we were part of, I think, Dragonspine, they tried to knight you. And I know you've talked about that a little bit. I think even Sir Golan mentioned it very briefly. But tell us a little bit about that if you could.
Yeah, so it was I guess it was about a year or so after Salazar started playing.
Yeah, it's 2001 that they came.
Yeah, and so Ben, who is Sir Randall, and Azriel Jade, who's Amy, his wife, they came all the way here when we were talking about forming the Central Eastern Alliance. And in part, it was to support us, and in part, it was to try and convince us not to go, to tell us that we didn't have to go,
Right.
that they would try and do more, because I think he was monarch at the time. It was the most amazing trip for me. They came out and stayed in my bedroom at my mom's house. This is pretty embarrassing for me. They're like actual adults, and I'm like moved back in after being out of the house, moved back in with my parents.
This kid's got a lot of Roadhouse posters on his wall. What's up with that? They're all Swayze. I don't get it.
I could look at them for a long time, though.
They came in, and like it was they just did everything. Like, they were amazing to us. They made us the infamous like dragon spine belt favors that a lot of us still wear to this day. Ben didn't have enough. Randall didn't have enough, so he sat down at my mom's house and like busted out his sewing machine that he toted, however many thousand miles from New Mexico, and sewed them right there, and then like taught us how to weave chainmail. That was where I first started doing that from. And of course, my knight helped me out a lot after that, because Sir Golwyn's, amazing at everything crafty, and including chainmail. And so he taught me that. But it was that time that I got that when Randall came in, they gave me my defender. And that was when it became real, because it wasn't long after that, maybe a couple of years or something, I don't know if you were playing at the time, that I won my first weapon master. And so then I was qualled. I don't know, it's probably like 2004 maybe. I can't remember.
Seems about right.
I just know I was one of the few times that I stopped his streak of 21.
Yeah, that was when you streak broke me into existence. Like, that was when you came into being for me. It's when I was busy looking over you in the line, in that Iron Man line. I was like, oh, there's so much soft underbelly. I will get my 21 today. And then that's when the person I wasn't paying attention to, which was, you, half of what you are now. And you killed me, sir.
I think Golan had a great phrase for this last week. He said, newbies don't understand that they're supposed to lose.
Yeah. That's one of the most dangerous is the newbie who doesn't know.
Well, he wasn't a newbie, though. He had one like go-to slick shot, and that's what he rolled on me. It was this weird.
So you picked up two more. That way you were able to get the Warlord, right?
So yeah, that was the first time I remember Gunn. But they wanted to knight me, and I was thinking, wow, this is crazy. And of course, I was belted under Golan at the time, and he called me to let me know that they had approached him about it, and he told me, he always gave me such sage advice. Still to this day, we don't talk as much as we used to, but like still to this day, it's it's always been less about fighting and more about life. And he's always been like a really awesome older brother in that way, and super great mentor. But he gave me this advice, and he told me that it would be, he said, you'll make a good sword knight, but you won't ever be the sword knight that you want to be, that you told me, because I told him the same, stories that I told you guys, about what I looked up to and what I wanted to be. And he said, you'll never be that guy, because you won't have that. You won't have that goal out there to strive for, So, and it was, I still think to this day that it was like some of the best advice I got, because I got that amazing period. Because I don't know if you guys know, it's not fun being a sword knight, because it's all expectation. It's like everybody you go out and you're supposed to be this, in the words of Sir Corbin, who was a Billy Badass back in the day as well. He said they expect a unstoppable juggernaut of doom. I think it's, and and that's not what you are, right? I get killed every day by all of you jokers. You know what I mean? Like, and even though Jeff is a little person in like 54 states, like he still kills me, and like I have to die to everybody. But you're not that, and and I wanted to be more like those guys that I idolized. So it was really great advice to be able to have somebody there to kind of keep me in check with what my goals were, what my standards were. You know, those were my standards. You know, he was just reminding me of my own goals and not to compromise that. And it's best decision, because when you go out as a squire and you're still headhunting the sword knights, it's all upside. If you win, fucking amazing. If you lose, yeah, they're a sword knight, you're supposed to lose. But when you're a sword knight, it's just all win, you know? Win or just stomp them, right? Total shutout, then you're not meeting expectations.
That's fair. And Sir Golwyn did talk a lot about setting your own goals. You know, we had talked about box tops and whether or not, you know, Warlord should be a thing that's required for Sword Knight and a lot of stuff there. And he was like, whatever your goal is, go for it. If you want to be a Sword Knight with just your 10 box tops and that's cool in your kingdom, do it. But, you know, he had a lot of the my cold dead hands mentality. I think he used those words exactly.
Well, he did. And the one thing that I really took away from him, and I bragged on it then, and I'm going to brag on it again in this episode, is what Sir Gilan was just saying. He had set an expectation for himself, and his friends helped him remember that expectation as he went through. And if that expectation changed, it was an active decision by him to change it in some way. That's not saying that he holds anyone else to that expectation. It's not saying anything else. It's he has decided for himself, this is what I want to do. This is a path I'm going to take. And then he followed it.
Yep.
It's make lines in the sand. And if you cross them, know that you're crossing them. I just think it's a really powerful message, because a lot of times I hear people say, oh, well, I heard this one warlord say this or that. And so that's what you have to do. But you don't hear that with any other belt. You don't hear somebody say, well, I have an expectation as a crown knight that other crown knights are going to do this, because the other crown knights tell me to fuck off.
We definitely hear that. I heard that a lot coming up in Neverwinter with the Serpent belts, because they were really hardcore with crafting. You know, they wanted you to just like a lot of knights will say or have said since they want you to win out a kingdom. They want to show that you can win or place out a kingdom. Have a showing. At least go out and like show that you're willing to. I don't think I've won a tournament out of kingdom. You have though.
Didn't you win one of the Neverwinter ones?
You have on your Amped Wiki, you have 4 Neverwinter Kingdom Weapon Masters. But I think at the time we were technically Neverwinter.
Yeah, that might be the technicality there.
When I say out of kingdom, I'm technically a Neverwinter knight.
Right.
Yeah.
Gun would be the first sword belt in Winter's Edge.
I don't think you can call yourself that. Neverwinter Knights, I'm pretty sure, is trademarked. Think of something better.
Well, they had a thing, didn't they?
I think Sir Roger had that problem with like domains. Like he got sniped out of the Neverwinter Nights, or maybe it's Silverwater. He had the periodic elements spelled out .org or something for his park, which was called Silverwater. And he got sniped on that one too, I think.
Oh no! Hey,
quick, I think that's why their incorporation is Amp Guard of Florida or something like that, because of Neverwinter Nights
coming out at the same time.
Computer game, similar times, or I don't remember who came first or anything like that.
Thanks, Wizards of the Coast.
Right,
jerks. So, real quick, while we're on your Amped Wiki, because we pull this up for everybody, and yours actually has content.
Sure it's not up to date, man.
Nobody's is. Nobody's is.
I think mine's a blank page. It's great.
Well, for what it matters here. It says under notable accomplishments, 8 real Orders of the Warrior. So what's that about?
Well, I have 8 real Orders of the Warrior. So that I was striving for my triple qual, just like my knight. He wanted the old school Warlord, which is 20, was streak 21 in the Kingdom tournament, and that's what I wanted. And when you talk about changing your goals, your standards, right? That's where I changed my standard. Once we moved over to the new system, it was that's what we were doing. It was like, okay, that's not likely at this time. Not just because of the stout competition, because it was Chohag who's sitting at 9 real orders. Like the guy's he's got more weapon masters still to this day, and he hasn't played really in a long time.
Yeah.
So it's a serious injustice to him. He's not a sword belt. But he was doing that same old school standard too. So he stopped at 9. And then Sir Stinkfoot, amazing. He would make an amazing sword knight to this day. I think he's got 8. But again, he was going for his triple qual. He never got sword belt, which again is a serious. I mean, those are 2 knighthoods that would be good, kind of retrofitted into the grandfathered in. But anyway, I lost my train of thought. I had too much. He wasn't even thinking about it. Shit, where was I going?
Something about real orders of the warrior.
Yeah, 8 real orders of the warrior.
So yeah, it was at that point that Chris was, Golan was telling me, that it's it's going to be really tough to get that. He got his, but it was after years and years of hard work and getting 21 and more than 21 and just not the right situation. And then, but for tournament wise, they're just not long enough. Even when we were, 2 out of 3 and counting each win and not counting the match win as one for your streak.
Right.
Even when we were doing that, it's really tough. Tournaments were too small to realistically streak like that. So with those 2 things considered, I went ahead and said, okay, well, I will start taking these weapon master wins as orders, and I'll consider that to into the new system. Iron Mountains, I think Iron Mountains had a big influence on why that was in place in the first place, why we made that change to the tourney wins counting, because the competition at the time or leading up to that change in Iron Mountains was insane. Like every other person was a warlord or sword knight.
Yeah.
And Imha and Leroy and
Guy, Thor.
Guy, Thor. I mean, it was just stacked over there. So like Eggman, all these people. And Eggman wasn't even like, at the time, Eggman wasn't even like at the level he's at now, right? But he still makes the list 100% because he would have given anybody in my kingdom a run for the money at that time. And he wasn't even like in the top echelon at that point. So they started doing that, and it made sense for them, and it does make sense as well for us. So I went ahead and kind of compromised there. But I list it there just to always state that guys like Cho definitely outmatched me at the time, to kind of give credit that it's due. You know what I mean?
That's fair. I can respect that.
So transferring from the kind of old system to new brings a different kind of mindset as far as fighting. So let's go with, I guess, Gunn first. When you're lining up with someone during, let's say, just the top 8, where we're typically for the 2 of 3 matches, what's the first thing that you think about going into a match with somebody?
I try to determine who they are and rank them on where they scale on my.
Is it an anime scale like D to S plus?
Yeah. If they don't rank in the A+ area, I'm not too worried. I'm just like, all right, here's an opener, you're dead. And I just rinse and repeat that same thing. For whatever reason, nobody catches on that I'm doing 2 moves over and over and over again.
Well, some people catch on. Doesn't mean we can block it, but some people catch on.
To a person where we're in the finals, and I'm like, all right, that's not going to work again.
Right.
So I have to really change it up, or just sell it differently, so to speak, or eliminate their ability to even be mobile. Sometimes people's footwork are just better than mine. I'm kind of lazy, so I take their leg. I'm like, all right, now you can stop all this running around.
So if
I don't care if it's top 8 or not, if I'm fighting a guy that's got a lot of hustle like Hersher, I'll be like, screw this. There's no private problem. I'm going to do what I got to do. You're going to get legged. Sit the fuck down. I'm not dealing with some dude that can do backflips. You know what I'm saying?
All hustle and heart, no skill.
So to kind of, like, joking aside, to kind of codify all of that, what it's really doing is, when you're walking in, whether you know someone or not, you're taking a moment to assess who they are and the biggest threat you think they pose to you, and then you're eliminating that threat. You're putting yourself back in a position where you're, if you think of it like a scale, you're saying, okay, I'm going to take this away from him so the scale's tipping back towards me again. Using Hosh as an example, for those that don't know Hosh, he's really, really fast, mobile, energetic, possibly cocained up friend of ours.
I don't think he's cocained up. I think he's just got Labrador DNA or something. Like he's just very excited.
He's got husky DNA, yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah. You're right.
But yeah, no, you kind of label him as sorry, not to hijack you.
Yeah, he's definitely like a locomotive. Once he's started, you're kind of screwed. There's no stopping it.
Oh God, I never realized this. Hosh is the juggernaut.
Yeah, that's his before it gets going. Yeah. The juggernaut for Hosher is a great analogy.
Yeah, that really is.
We got to make him a hat, one of the little foam helmets.
I'm not doing that. I won't.
He'll wear it. It'll be great.
I know. That's why I'm not doing it.
So I guess. Go ahead.
I was just saying, he'll just add that juggernaut title to his already
lunchbox tank ass mix. Yeah.
So Zeb, same question. Like when you line up in front of somebody, what's something you think about like on a mental state for tournament fighting? Because it is, at least to me, a different mental state than just fighting someone at park, basically.
Yeah.
It is for you definitely a different mental state because you could win a lot of tournaments if you could beat them. The amount of times that you beat me and other warlords and things is pretty embarrassing to the warlord community.
My giant 4 Order of the Warrior.
Yeah, dude, that speaks to the level of competition at our. Like, Jeff can smoke a lot of fools out there, and he beats me on the regular. And in the tournaments, man, you just fold.
I can't do tournaments.
I've seen you do a couple where you hit up a 2-stick bracket and you just wreck face, and you get points in it, but you never finish. You get in your head, you never close it. Yeah. No, for me, and this is something that Gunn and I talked through for the last orders that he was getting was trying to, and this is something we did at the dojo that I was in when I was a kid, is that once you got to a certain belt rank, you had to have a notebook. You had a comp book with a page for every person that was in your belt group. Because at that point, the belt, there was not that many of them. Like the greens, browns. There's a green and up in our system. You had a comp book page on them. There was no reason why you shouldn't know exactly what that person leads with. How they typically fight, the stuff they typically throw. And that's kind of how I tried to codify it with him is like, this person is, you don't even know them, right? But their body type. If somebody like Flo walks up to you, you're like, okay, I've got to close. This is going to be one of those situations where I know I'm going to have to close because this guy probably knows he has range. That's one kind of archetype of fighter that you would position yourself for. If you come up against, some little person like Jeff, you're like, okay, this guy's going to close on me. So I've got to try to find some way to get him out from underneath my nutsack so that I can. So you might anticipate a backpedal at that point. So yeah, I always try to archetype fighters. And that's something that I've tried to, I think it was really useful to use that same technique from the dojo to Amped Guard, just try to apply that. Because like everybody that's made that run toward Warlord, everybody that's just tried to win a tournament, you know the players that you got to beat. You know where your problem's at, where your win percentage is less than 50-50. Even if it's 60-40, you still gotta worry about that guy. So you gotta have a page on that guy. So for the most part, it's archetypes, and then when you get into specific fighters in that top 8, which I think is what Jeff asked originally about, in that top 8, you really got to have a page on that guy. That person, you got to know what they're going to do to you. As much as I said that person, because I have lost a number 1 fight to a woman once, and it was tie-dye. And because she traced me and I knew she was a tracer and I just didn't give her enough respect mentally. And I rolled in and I led on her and she said, and traced me. And that was, you got to worry. You got to have some kind of knowledge about them going into it.
So when you say like fighting archetypes, is there we asked this to Sir Anatole too, I believe. Mm-hmm. Give us a few of those fighting archetypes if they exist in a way that can be, placed into a taxonomy.
Well, I think Hosher is the guy that really gives me the most problem.
He's that top tier noob.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good one. The top tier noob, the guy that doesn't have a lot of great shot placement, doesn't have a lot of clubs in the bag, but has just aggression. He's just going to close. He's going to be, you're just trying to, like Gunn's analogy with the locomotive, you just got to get off the tracks, man. You got to work on, your footwork's got to be on that day to get away from him, to sidestep him. If a lot of people, don't like leg leads. It is kind of a cop out, but sometimes when you got to get the win, you got to get the win.
They always called me Flo Cop Out.
At least any tournament I've been with him, there's at least a double leg.
Yeah, where'd you think I learned it from?
Double legs are different.
That's a kill. That's a kill combination.
Yeah.
That's one less point he has to work.
Yeah. I like to leg lead or double leg lead on the first fight in a match, because I always do better in the best 2 out of 3 when I've got one up going in. The next fight is always much more relaxed, and I can just do what I normally do and kind of fall into muscle memory instead of getting in my head too much about it.
So I remember, I want you to continue your conversation about archetypes, but I want to touch on one point there. It's a conversation that you and I had many, many, many years back. One of the first tournaments that we went down to in Neverwinter, everybody's watching, right? Everybody's watching you. And in tournaments, there is definitely a mental game. It is a real thing. Your mental game, the mental game of everyone else that you're going to be fighting that day. And so what you did is you walked into the ring, and it was not someone who was a top-tier fighter in the kingdom, right? And you smoked them. Right off the bat, it wasn't overly aggressive. It wasn't overly showy. It wasn't anything. You simply killed them quickly, efficiently, in a way that would demoralize everyone else that's watching, right? And it was for a very specific. I came back and I was like, hey, you could have done anything you wanted to that person. You could have stabbed him. You could have slotted him in the shoulder. Why did you do that? And your words followed me through the rest of my Amp career. You turned to the rest of the crowd and looked back and said, now everyone knows. And then you grabbed your Gatorade and started drinking and watching the rest of the fight, waiting for your next call to go. Because stuff like that is important. It's odd, the things that you prep for and the things that you can't prep for, right? But your reputation that day matters. So I just wanted to touch on that headspace question that you had kind of brought up there.
Yeah, that was something that was Chris's tutelage. Like, as much as I could, as he could, be into my boneheadedness about Tourney food. I was always playing, in the moment in the match. And I was playing checkers. Chris was playing chess. That's really what I was like, I'm doing really good. And he goes, I'm not even scratching the surface of whatever Queen's Gambit he's got going on in his brain. And he, and that's one of the things he would teach me. That was one of the things that he did a lot, was talk about the theory on, it's like playing poker with him. He's a great poker player too. And he would talk about, I won this tournament, or more specifically, it's very nuanced. I beat that guy and that guy last night on the ditch line. I dumped, and to use like pool shark terms, I dumped last night those two guys so that they would have a huge head when they fought me today, so that I could run my standard top 2-3 shot leads and kill them. He had that. It was like a Danny Ocean thing. It was like, I saw you coming before you woke up this morning.
I mean, I think that he kind of operates in some degree like percentages and things like that with openers, because he touched on it, and I didn't really explore it at the time, but like he touched on, like, I know this guy's going to open in this sort of way, so he
threw that opener on the last 5 people. Guess what he's going to throw on you?
So working percentages and outsides and stuff like that is really, really clever. So it doesn't surprise me he's good at poker in any way, shape, or form.
Well, and
poker players also wear a lot of wraparound sunglasses.
Oh, that's a good point. So Gunn mentioned this earlier. You said it just now. We joke. We joke, and I've heard other warlords this month joke about the 3 shots, 2 shots, 4 shots, or something like that. But it's true, though, right? I mean, the more people I talk to, the more they say, I really did. I have 3 shots that I perfected, and I have a lot of setups for those 3 shots. what. So what are your 3 shots? No, I'm not going to ask you that.
Well, no, you did mention, having clubs in the bag, and I did assume that those are shots or openers or threats that you can make.
Yeah.
There's 2 great things, and this is one of the things. This is what got Gunn, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. This is what got Gunn past his plateau.
Okay.
Right? These very simple things. We were working at the park. It was a slow day. There were only a few of us. It was me. It whittled down to me and Subway, Jay, and Gunn. It was just after he moved up, and the 3 of us were fighting, and it was Gunn was just sucking hind tit, man. He was just not winning a fucking match, and so Jay and I were explaining that there aren't like 60 block positions, right? And we didn't know it at the time, but Potato and some other people have done great videos online on what's called the house guard. That was what it was. It's little concepts like that. Everybody learns in a different way. As soon as we talked to him about, lanes and how to like isolate this, your shot potential for them, their shot potential on you is here when they're this close, and it's here when they're that far away. And just going, this is guard, that's guard, explaining like 4 basic guard positions that he should be in at any given time. And then that day, I swear to God, he jumped up like, 5 rungs easy in a day, just from that. And we had been, I had been beating the shit out of him as my roommate in my squire for like, I don't know how many months up to that point. And it was that day that it kind of changed. So being able to really clearly define and be able to talk about them using the same terminology, same verbiage, was really important for him. And then once it clicked about the house guard, which we didn't know at the time was called house guard, or people taught it that way, but that's essentially what it was. Yeah. And that's a club for sure, being able to have that kind of defense. But then moving into the shots though, you're only going to throw like 10 shot. There's really only like 10 shot variants I've ever thrown. Right. They all end the same way. They just, like Gunn said, they look different coming in, you know, and like there's a great set of videos from Sir Spendthrift. Seth had them all worked out. And still to this day, I think the best set of videos for teaching you basic shots are like a video set that him and Brennan did in a parking garage.
Yeah, I've seen these. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jeff knows what I'm talking about. And I point people at those all the time. And all it does is it breaks down the shots he's going to throw. And he doesn't throw anything but those shots, but like timing, footwork, positioning, set up. That's it. You've got, just like a standard game of golf, to keep expanding on that analogy, you've only got X number of clubs that'll fit in the bag. Right. There's only like 12 clubs in that amp guard bag. But how many different ways you present those is kind of infinite.
Okay. Damn. So, I mean, I know that there's, different things can be a quote club, but I'm going to keep moving with it. For anybody listening that is wanting to improve, if they can only have 2 clubs in their bag, two things that they worked on immediately that you can convey in an audio format, what would those 2 things be? And we'll start with Warlord Gunn, because you're making the scared face.
No, that's just what he always looks like.
Mine, sadly enough, was a dick stab.
Okay, that's one club.
One of my openers is a dick stab, because at that point they are terrified. If you land it once, they are terrified. So all you have to do is pump at that direction. Everything goes down. Now the shoulder back is the next one I do all the time. Yeah. So dick stab, shoulder back are the 2 I do quite often.
All right, Sir Gilan.
No, that's a perfect analogy, because like we had this old cat coming up at the dojo, and he had 2 moves when we were point sparring, or when we were sparring at all. Mm-hmm. And one was a reverse punch with his good arm, which is a right hand, right? Mm-hmm. And the other one was a front kick to the groin.
So it doesn't have to necessarily be something like that, because I do something very similar. Like I throw sword side wrap with board versus board, like sword side cross on low. And then if I go fake it with a kind of a drop fake towards that, people drop their boards and I go board side up. So it is, again, kind of working different quadrants. Zeb's talked about quadrants before, which is simply like if you look at a quarter panel shield or something. So it's throw low left and then come back high right, because it's the most drift of your guards that you're going to get, things like that. Okay. And actually, you guys touched on something that's kind of to the tourney foo that we've talked about before, is winning that first match is really important, because you can have the potential to throw that same shot again and kill them, and it's in our head, but that gives you also a fake. So one of the things that Zeb does occasionally is he'll throw hard outside wrap, and then he'll fake outside. It makes their guard float outward and then kills them on the inside. So this is the kind of chess game that you can play with people as well from a mental game perspective, because the two shots he's throwing are incredibly basic shots placed really well and in a really good timing. So again, fighting is not some sort of like, I have a perfect shot. It's a perfect setup or a perfect timing, more so than that, I feel like.
It's all basics. Somebody said it better a long time ago. It was somebody else, but I remember Brennan saying it. But the guys at the very top, you'll find that those are just guys doing the basics extremely well.
Yeah,
that's really what it is. And the quadrant thing that Jeff was talking about, that's always how I've thought about it in my mind, and I've taught it that way at classes, because a lot of people still have quarter paneled shields, and that's a perfect example of looking at the 4 quadrants. That speaks to like general shot creations, like lead creation. If you're listening and you want to look at lead creation, go to the CG Dojo. It's a little aged now, but it's still amazing. Potato did this great series. I forget what it's called. Do you remember?
I don't remember. I've seen a bunch of it.
Where it has all the leads on it?
Yeah.
The ABA and the like AAB or something like that. Well, or is that different?
It's in the show notes. I'll make sure to send it out to people.
Yeah. That's a drill.
Okay.
You're talking about ABA and BAB and like stuff like that. Those are drills, but he did a lead generator. It was like a fun thing where you gave something a silly name.
Oh, I remember vaguely seeing this video now. Yeah.
Brett, I remember we got through sparring one day and we were watching some of those to try and get some ideas for, mixing it up and new shots. And like Brett had one that I throw still to this day. He called it the Kate Winslet. And, but it was a setup for an existing shot, but it was just a setup. But the setup was the most amazing part. You're still throwing the same spin shot you always threw, but the quadrant thing speaks to shot creation, lead creation. That's really where you get to that infinite number of reads. Like how you go from quadrant 2 to quadrant 3 or quadrant 1 to quadrant 4. How you get there is really the style and the thing that's unique to you. But just understanding that concept as to if you go from like quadrant 1 to quadrant 2, right, which is still, if you look at it on a shield, it's still up top, right? It's left shoulder, right shoulder, or right shoulder, left shoulder. And, you're going to get a higher yield if you go further away. So if you go 1 to 4 instead of 1 to 2.
Right. Shit. Yeah, I don't know. That tracks.
I am still drinking. Okay.
Well, no, so this is really good for people listening at home who have been interested in that or just want to get better at fighting. There's sort of 2 paths. You have the Sir Gilan path where you work on the basics and you sort of identify and develop a language for improving your fighting. And then if you want to take the Warlord Gunn path, you can buy a plastic dick, stick it on your fridge, and stab it a couple times a day. And either one is good because you get really good at the dick stabs.
Or just be really big, throw really hard, and be really nice to people, and somehow they have Stockholm syndrome. And so
that is
smile with pain. Yeah.
So this ties into something that Anatole had said earlier, and that is that you have, I think it was Anatole, you have threat locations. It's not that you're developing a shot that threatens the board side hip. It may not be the same shot every single time, but the mechanics of pulling it off are going to be similar. It's the setups that change for it. And the difference between someone that's very new and someone that's very experienced is someone who has not just practiced throwing that that threat to the hip. It's someone that has tied that into fakes and openers that work well for them, for their body type, and their. You're shaking your head. Go. What's going on?
No, I totally agree with you, but I think we're getting in the weeds with that. Like that's like, you're really getting top level stuff. I think that if anybody that really needs that advice is listening to this podcast, they should probably listen to a different podcast. But like,
there are ones specifically devoted to that.
There
so.
are, yeah.
Out there, it's really great. But if you're a new player, all you're worried about, to like simplify all that down, all you're worried about is the next tiny goal that you have. And this is something that Seth always says, Spendthrift, Sir Duke's Finn in the SCA, is you just want to suck less. That's it. You're playing a game with yourself, and you're just trying to make such small, because once you get to that plateau, like where Gunn was at with the block, he got lucky, and like he had all the other tricks ready to go when he figured out his guard, right? And he was able to make that jump. That's a 1 in a million to me game. I don't see that game with people like after, just one practice and one concept, and it clicks and they go up that high. I've never seen that. I'll say I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
But usually it's these painful, tiny, incremental games that you get. And that's the suck less. Just you're playing a game against yourself. You're not trying to win. You're just trying to be a better you. And of course it's Seth, so he puts this negative connotation on it. So suck less, right? That's really all it means, is you're just trying to, and like when I got started, I was really lucky to read that because we didn't have the online community that we do now. I was really lucky to get to read that on a page called ampedguardcombat.com, which Sir Corbin ran. And it's ancient. I'm sure it hasn't existed in decades.
No,
but
it's down.
It was the first place that I understood that people had this fighting logic. They posted drills and things like that. I mean, it predated ESAM, I'm pretty sure. And right, I'm old.
I may have found it in the Wayback Machine. Hold on, if I have, I'm gonna link it.
That's one of the things that he said, and I took that to heart. And it was just the stars aligned that I saw that when I got into competitive Amped Guard. He said, when you're fighting the guy that's killing you all the time, when you're fighting that sword knight, you're not trying to win. The goal is not to win. The goal is to get a block. That's all you're doing. Start with one block.
Survival.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Just that's all you can do. Incremental win. The guy you're playing has put in way more reps than you. All you're going to get is an incremental win, and you should be super happy with it, right? Because by that point, you're in the valley of despair, right? You're trying to work your way up.
So, speaking of the Valley of Despair, which is the name of my Nine Inch Nails cover band. You're
gonna have to start delivering on some of these cover bands.
What you plateaued more than once in your long climb to Sword Knight, and Gunn, I know that you did as well.
I was plateaued till I moved up.
Yeah, right. So
I was a 6th Order Warrior for about 8 years.
I think that people start on this journey and think that it's going to be something that they can progress towards at a fairly steady pace, and that's not always the case. What were some of the things that helped you work through that when you were plateaued?
Move in with my knight.
I mean, we've seen that several times, technically.
I was plateaued for the 6-7 years prior to moving in. And that first year is when, like he said, I learned that blocking mechanism is where I finally broke it. And then when I went back to Neverwinter is when I won that first tournament to get my...
I'm going to share a fun generational beltline thing for your beltline, the Abuhu God beltline. Goen gave the exact same answer. He said to move in with your friends and have them fight with you every single day.
Oh, God.
Well, I mean, even Anatole did, right? Like, it wasn't necessarily move in with your friends, but the whole, like, almost everybody has had the... we have a core group of 4 or 5 people, and we fight as often as possible, and we fight each other, and we may not be exactly the same skill level, but they're going to challenge me every time, right? So you need, enough people around you who want to get better to bring you up as well.
You got to be careful about that, though.
It's really just finding that group of people that that have that same goal.
Yeah.
Because if you have people that just playing the game just to play the game, they're gonna flake off.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not going to help you.
No, it's not. And that's the thing about me headhunting Zeb and forcing to live with him. He pretty much said, you're going to have to live closer to be my squire. And then literally like a week later, I moved in.
He just showed up on the doorstep. So
he pretty much said no until I was like, all right, I'm packed. I'm at your door.
That was a weird confluence of events because I had already like lined. I didn't have a squire at the time, and I had lined somebody up, a good friend of mine. We fought constantly. He was at my house constantly, and I was like, "Yeah, dude, I think we'll do that. We'll get into that knight squire relationship, right?" And then when I ran into Gunn again after years, because you were coming back after a stint of not playing,
Yep.
And it's so weird. He showed up at the event. I'm like, dude, I remember you. You are big now. And
Shalzar didn't even remember me.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what's up, Shalzar? He's like, who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
He's like, you eat.
Yeah. And Gunn was like straight up. He said, hey, look, I want to be a sword knight. I'm back in. I want to do it. I want to do it right. You're the guy, and I'm going to be your squire. And I said, look, I've already got it worked out with this other guy. You would have to be like right in my backyard before that's something can work, because long distance is tough. My knight was exceptional, I felt like, so he made it work, but like I'm not exceptional in that way, so you're going to need to be in my backyard. And then like no shit, like probably 2 months or 3 months later,
yeah.
I was moving his stuff into my spare bedroom.
I mean, it's an aggressive pitch, but I'm not going to dare throw stones at somebody that lives with their knight, so we're all good here.
So, Sir Gilan, what about you? What are some of the things or tools that you have used to overcome the what can be kind of like a very depressing plateau sometimes that we all go through?
Okay, so I just genuinely I've thought about this question honestly, and I just love fighting. Like I love good, fair, honest competition. Like that sounds really cliche, but I do. And so I never minded losing. I always just went into it with super low expectations for myself. And I always, was like happy when I won, happy when I got to fight. You know what I mean? And so for me, I was less analytical than I should have been to be efficient about learning. My knight would tell me lots of things. Golan would tell me all the things I needed to know, of which I would pay attention to maybe one, which wouldn't be enough. And I would just bang my head against it. Dude, I just put in so many reps. It was ridiculous. Like my shoulders and my elbows are absolutely destroyed at 22 like it's painful doing a lot of things. And it's because I just put in the reps, man. I banged my head against the wall. It was like, I was like farming gold. I wasn't good. I wasn't doing dungeons.
I was great at farming gold.
I know. I was just like, gathering herbs, right. And put them on the AH, right. That was me. I was just constantly getting reps in. And I would bang my head against it and learn in such small increments, to get past it. But once I got to where I was past that tournament problem that I had a big issue where I couldn't get out of my head. Like when you're going to give a speech or when you're going to speak in front of people, for me, it's very troubling. And I get in my head about it. And the closer I get to doing that, like say for work, I have to speak to a lot of clients. And the closer I get to doing that, the more intense the anxiety gets. And that's the way Tourney was for me. So I just had to try different things until I got it right. So I failed at it a lot. I placed second in as many weapon masters as Golan has won, right? I placed second in, okay? Maybe more at this point, because he stopped at one point and I kept going. And even after a sword knight, I still finished second a lot. It's totally okay. But for like that, I just had to try as many permutations as I could. I wish I had a good answer for how to codify that and logically work through it. For me, with a specific plateau I had was Tourney food. And what I did was I got out of my head by just fighting. I did nothing but ditch during the tournament. I would find one or two people and I would say, I'm just going to fight in my off time. I'm never going to stop. And that's exactly what I did to the T when I got my last win for my 10th. I beat Chris by that time I beat Chris by a lot, but sorry, it was the time before that. My ninth order, I did nothing but fight on the sideline and I got out of my head. So,
what you said is a slightly varied version of what Sir Anatole said. And I think it boils down to changing your, he called it your language of success, right? So where, if you won, great, you won. If you lost, hey, it's still awesome that you got to fight. For Anatole, that is what he means by changing your language of success. Changing the win for the day from win all the fights to block 2 every time or get as many blocks in as you can, that kind of thing. So I think that is, that advice is transferred from several people. So, I think it's great advice. But bringing it back to, getting stuck in your head and tourney foo and everything else, this is a problem I have currently right now with disc golf because it's about the only thing we can do socially distance that is, reasonable. But I get stuck in my head and Teflon here will yell, don't think, just throw. And I'm just like, oh, fuck, and I'll just, yeet the Frisbee. Sometimes it works.
Is that what's going on? I just thought he was bad at disc golf.
I have my days.
No, I'm totally there with you. I can't take Anatole's super positive focus on that.
Right.
But I was always able to kind of to shift the way that I was thinking about it. Like, people look at it almost like a video game sometimes, I feel, where they go in and like, I got to win. If I'm not winning, if I'm not landing the skill shot, I'm not getting any better. And we're not a video game. We share some things in common, right? But you learn just as much losing as you do winning. And
you honestly learn more by losing than you do winning.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. And one of the things I picked up from Sir Gilan is we would travel somewhere and I would be fighting and I would go to get some water. It's like, hey, man, you see anything? He's like, yeah, you're just trying to win too much, man.
Yeah.
And it was because it was more important for me to try and beat this knight in some random kingdom that we had gone to rather than focusing, but because I was throwing almost the same shot over and over again because they hadn't seen it, didn't have an answer for it or whatever, right? Because we were from a different neck of the woods. Mm-hmm. When what I should have been doing is picking apart what they were doing well against me and how I could bring that back to my kingdom and wreck with it. So don't be afraid to lose.
You don't have to have that hyper positive mindset that Sir Anatole has.
Though it is helpful.
I physically can. I have depression and anxiety. I take fucking Lexapro, but like it's still a good. Like, you've got to have it up there that it is an alternative to being the best is getting better. And however you internalize that, I think is fine.
Well, I think the big obstacle for a lot of people is they beat themselves up when they do lose instead of trying to translate it into a learning experience like you guys are explaining. And I ended up for a long time beating myself up. Like, I didn't express it outwardly, but internally, if I lost a match, especially first round in a tournament, I pretty much lost the whole tournament, even though I could still probably place in the rest and still be top 3.
Yeah, that's that. Golan talked about that a little bit, where it's like you walk in and you've got to think that you've won like the moment you step in. Like, I've beaten every guy here in my head before we started this tourney. I called it the Kanye West mindset, but
in the tournament that Gunn won to get his Warlord, I fought him in one of the top 8s, and I beat him in the first match. And he stepped back and smiled to me, and I said, "What's so funny?" He said, "You're not going to win another match." Because he knew that was it. I had thrown my shot. He saw who I was.
That was a little mental kung fu too. Yeah. That's like a tennis move, where you're like, you just got bested, but you're grinning like you didn't just get bested and you totally meant for that to happen.
Right.
Right. That's just the right mental fuck you to say, all right, he beat me. I didn't want him to beat me, but I'm gonna play this really cool right now and see if I can get in his head.
No, it worked. I was like, he knows.
What's the thing you do to Justin sometimes in tourneys where you mess with him a little bit?
Oh, so patches, Justin. When I'm walking out onto the field.
Messing with patches is a national pastime.
It is, dude. So when we're going out into a match in a tournament, I will do nothing but talk about how well he's been doing against me. It's like, man, before we even get into the ring, I was like, I'm worried about Florentine, man. And I think that you and I are going to be second match in there, and you've been smoking me lately. And then the whole time I'm heading out, I was like, hey, those 36s, you're using 36s, right? Those aren't 40s or anything you're using on me. And then I immediately stab him. I jack stab him as hard as I can in the chest. And you can see the expression drain from his face because he knows that I've done it again. He knows exactly what's happened. A lot of us have games like that. We've known each other for a long time too. You're fighting the person more than the style that they're fighting.
That's where that fight book comes in so much handy, because it's so nuanced to try and fight Jeff, or to fight Flo. These are guys that are at my park and have been at my park for a very long time. So they definitely have entire chapters in my fight book about what they could potentially do to me. Anywhere from the most simple basic shot that I know they throw really well to telling me my shoe's untied and then stabbing
I
me.
would never do something like that.
That happened in a tournament, y'all.
No, I did it to E. The E is probably the best one that I ever done it to, because we were in the middle of like jugging or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was lined out. We're next to the boundary, and I go, hey man, your shoe's untied. This is probably the first or second time I've met him, I think, at this time. And he goes, what? And brings both swords pointed directly outwards and looks down at his feet, and I stab the ever-loving piss out of him. And he's like, I can't believe that happened. And I think Zeb's over in the other corner, and he's falling down laughing because he saw the whole thing happen. And then he realizes that other people have seen it and gets really embarrassed and kind of walks Snoopy walks over to or Charlie Brown walks over to the other end and quits for a couple minutes.
Let's not be nice to my page, because he wouldn't understand that. But no, you had known him for a long time at this point.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So, we've had a few different nights on the show. We've talked to them about their relationship with their squires, and you guys mentioned that you lived together for a while. What for sword? What's a knight squire relationship for that look like? Like you guys fought a lot. You guys analyzed it. You sometimes filmed your fighting so you could talk about it. But you also do all of that with your friends. And your friends obviously aren't in your belted line. So what was it that kind of drew you to it? And what do you think makes for a strong bond between a knight and a squire going for sword belt?
Gunn.
Gunn already answered this. He said he moved in with you.
No, for me, I was just trying not to fuck it up. That's what it felt like. So, but it was, I think for both of us, not to get too real, but for both of us, it was really about just the mundane day to day, being able to keep each other going, because, we were full on adults going through some difficult stuff in our personal lives. And it was more just about being, knowing that someone always had your back. It's weird that that weird strap of leather around your belt, that squire's belt can do that. But Chris did that for me. I always knew I had somebody in my corner, whether it was in amp guard or out. They were always going to shoot straight with me. I knew he always had my best interest at heart. There was never any political maneuvering or anything. It was just, I've got somebody behind me helping me out, period. And he did that for me as much as I feel like I tried to do that for him.
Yeah.
And so it enabled us to keep going in amp guard because we were able to stay sane in mundane life. That's really, that's kind of cheesy. Does that sound about right?
In the romantic way, that's definitely.
Yeah.
We kept each other afloat, and we pushed it positively through our fighting.
Yeah.
And that was our release with the other stress that we had in our life. And
yeah, I think that's also like a really good roommate.
Right. But
it just so happened to work out that way. But with AmpGuard practice, it was just I'm in bed sleeping in, and he yanks me out of bed by the foot and says, "Let's go fight."
This really happened.
He feels like it on days. He feels like fighting on days I don't, and vice versa. And so that kind of doubled our yield for the total number of reps that we got in. And then I tried as a knight, I tried to play to his weaknesses and know that, hey, you're losing like this. So this is what I'm going to throw at you. I'm going to fight like the guys that are beating you. So I tried at times to emulate the things that he was losing to try and help. We were really specific about each other's fights too. Like I would watch all of my company bros fights and try to help, but like Gunn especially so, we would try to be very specific about watching our fights and, giving each other pointers on it. Do things to help win weapon masters, like the godforsaken pole bracket, where you've got great weapon and, you've got to get points there. Or archery. How many times did we fire arrows through our house, when it was raining outside or something, to try and test arrows
to get the straight flying arrow.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Bathroom, through the kitchen, like through the dining room, through the kitchen, through the garage to the opposite wall.
We broke things.
Yeah.
If you weren't good at fixing drywall before.
Yeah.
Oh, we had a nice love seat that Hosher broke in quite often.
Because Hosher's a big guy, and sitting down on it and standing up on it will break it in over time, and that's
it. Yeah, that's it.
Mm-hmm. But no, so this is why I think that this is really good for people to hear, because again, sword, whether fair or unfair, is treated differently than the other belts. And your answer wasn't, oh, we went out and fought 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or we analyzed film, at least 3 times a day. Your first answer to this was, we were just there for one another. If we needed to talk, we talked. We were friends. We had a relationship where the other person was going to be there for us no matter what. Then after that, we pushed each other to fight even if we didn't feel like it. That's where the practice part came in. That's where your reps came in. But I think it's important for people to realize all of the knighthoods are going to be like that, right? You can't hold sword to this different standard in that way. This is defining the relationship, I think, of a good knight squire relationship, not just a good sword relationship.
Right. You can't hold sword to that standard. It's not fair to, certainly not to the sword belt, but to the other belts as well. Warlord, on the other hand.
Well, it's the same thing now.
Well,
right?
old school Warlord, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
That's a good differentiation to make. Like, our standard was always what Chris actually got to, what Goldwyn actually got to, that no one else in Neverwinter or Winter's Edge has gotten to, and that's that magic number, 21 for a Kingdom Mobile tournament, and that's next level stuff. Chris has always been next level. Chohag was always really amazing, and Pat too, but none of us got there. That's what it boils down to. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You might be good on a day, but you're not good on a career. Like Chris is, that's big time stuff. And maybe that's something that's come up recently that is that's kind of troubling too, is like how they want to adjust that. And I've thought a lot about, how they want to adjust that and why, and a lot of people get there. I like the old system where you had sword knights, but then you had warlords, right? The joke when I was coming up was like, all right, we're going to go eat. Where are we going to eat? And then the warlords didn't like that. So they go, okay, just sword knights. Where are we going to eat? Okay. They don't like that either. All right. Just the warlords. That was always the joke. Right. But yeah, I like the old system because there's a lot of guys that could be really great sword knights, but that aren't those. What's the Gary Oldman line from Fifth Element? Dyed in the wool. Those guys, that's Chris, man. I still to this day aspire to that level.
We talked a little bit earlier about new people and focusing on some different things. We discussed quadrants and things like that, but a lot of people in our game aren't new people. I think that the tenure for the game when they did the poll was somewhere around 3 years, 3-4 years.
Yeah, they make it to 3 years and they drop on average. So if you pass 3 years, you're kind of stuck apparently.
At the 3-year mark, we end up with a lot of people that are somewhere between second and, let's say, fifth order of the warrior. Or if you were to rank fighters in kingdoms into sort of a lower tier, a mid tier, and a high tier, mid tier is going to be where most of the fighters in your kingdom land. Do you have any advice for someone that is in the example that I'm using, what we'd call a mid-tier fighter? You're not challenging some of the best people in your kingdom, and you can pretty easily beat a group of people as well.
You're trying to push into the top 8 cut, basically.
Yeah, you're trying to make it into those top 8s every single time. Do you have any advice? And I ask this to you guys because a lot of your coming up, your training, the things that you passed on to your park were technique, were drills, were things like that, videos that you watched, and we discussed some of them earlier. What are some? Let me rephrase my question into something that's maybe a little bit more coherent. What are some skills that you see people in that area lacking, and what do you think they could do to fix it?
Well, it's really determining on what they want out of the game. If they're just wanting to play and have fun, then pushing them to go for tournaments and be top 8 is not their end game. Then pushing them that direction, and inevitably, in my opinion, is going to push them out of the game, because there's a lot of resources that you're going to have to push in, and time that you're going to want to put in, sacrifices that you're going to have to make to get to those goals. I traveled all the way to the east or west coast. I was actually in Alaska as well, fought different areas. And a lot of people don't have that funding, and they don't want to put that kind of time in. So They're wanting to, if they can, stay at the mid-tier, be competitive in their kingdom. So it's really, to me, what do they want out of the game? Because striving for Sword Knight, for some, it's going to burn them out. Because getting second place, third place so many times, it's just prolonging the next tournament, the next 6 months to try to get it again. And if you didn't put that work in at that point, you're just going to end up in the same spot again.
It's like, I think what Gunn's saying is you got to manage your expectations when you're at the mid-level, when you're in that valley of despair, which is depending on where you're at. Could Jeff start at 4, or could, like Beefy start at 5, guys that are really amazing fighters that are at parks where they can't, you got to pay the iron price for everything that you get, you got to manage expectations too. You can't expect to get the W in the next tournament. You got to get the next kill. You got to beat that next guy. I talk about the fight journal. That was big for me as a concept, and trying to just manage expectation, get the next block, suck less, that's it. It's incremental gains. When you get to the valley of despair, it's incremental games. You got to manage expectations. I'm not going to get this W, but I'm going to get the next block. And it's a grind at that point.
I'm going to sum up everything that Sir Gilan just now said.
You're not an athlete.
No. Okay, yes. That's absolutely what he said. I was going to go
exactly what he fucking said.
I was going to go a different route, because when he said you got to pay the iron price, it reminded me of something. Sword belt is not a pit. Sword belt is a ladder. Many who try to climb it fail and never get to try again. The fall breaks them. And some are given a chance to climb, but they refuse. They cling to the realm or the gods or love illusions. Only the ladder is real. The climb is all that there is.
That's a beautiful poem that you wrote. You should qual that. You fucker.
part of me always looks at sword belt and goes, man, there's not a lot of sword belts. And there's a lot of guys that are really freaking good that really kind of deserve to be a sword belt. I mean, I'm looking at Jeff like square in the ocular cavities right now because he's as good a teacher as a lot of people that I know. And and he, in that way, he would make a great sword belt, but it's the path to force him to be a better version of himself that is ahead of him, right? It's to show him what he can do. It's about him. It's about any individual. And for me, I never want to like let go of the standards that it took for me to get there because I want that for other people. You know, like I want Flo to realize that he can't eat fast food 3 times a day and be a warlord. You know, like I want Jeff to realize that he has to take it seriously sometimes. Yeah, thanks.
Holding up Flo's McDonald's cup.
That you got to take it seriously sometimes, you know, to get there, because it's putting yourself in the right headspace to do it, because that's the only thing stopping him, right? It's that path to get there. It's not getting there that matters. It's that you pushed yourself to do some things that you did not completely believe you could do. And that was me. Like after umpteenth losses, you know, after traveling and trying and losing, my knight never let me have it, man. He could have just slipped one block and said, oh, you got me. But he never did that, man. And that made me understand that I was capable of so much more. And it's that part of Warlord and Sword Knight that makes me go, man, I don't want to give that up. I don't want to compromise that standard for my friends, because they are better than what they are right now. They're capable of so much more, and they don't even realize it. And I want them to realize it. I told Jarek Chuck something in a tournament a long time ago. You know, he was like, hey man, I just need one more win and I got my next order. And I said, look, man, I'm not giving that to you, bro. Even if you're going to give me the next 2 matches in this set, there's no way I'm going to give that to you. And someday you're going to be a sword knight and you're going to realize why that's important. Right.
Yeah.
And you know, like to this day, he's not sword knight yet, but he's a lot further than he was. And I like to think that's because he had to try a lot harder and push himself a lot further to get that next order, because I wasn't fucking giving it to him.
That tracks.
So Gunn said me neither. So Chuck, the gauntlet's thrown.
So you more or less answered it, but I want to go ahead and put it directly to you. What do you think about sword knights who are only regional, and the fact that like they didn't travel, they didn't really show themselves in other kingdoms or something like that, where they have been produced solely in their kingdom and they are of the best in their kingdom, and because they've earned the wins, they got the box tops and things like that?
No, I think that's just your own, you know, that's your standard, man. Our standard was different because we come from a pedigree where that's not enough. Mm-hmm. Simply put, and I'm sorry, I'm pretty drunk at this point. I've been steady drinking whiskey. Like yeah.
God, this would be the podcast we should start doing video on. Damn it.
We had the Thunderhammer brew in the fridge, and we forgot to
I'm
get
watching
it out.
them turn darker shades of red as we go. Gun now matches the red that's on his tunic, and if you turn your head, look how red Zeb's ears are. They're also the same shade of red.
And for those at home listening, yes, this is how we have to get to talk to one another just on a normal basis. You know, when we're at work, this is pretty much our day.
Oh God, it can't be. All right. Well, we're at about the hour and a half mark, and you're reasonably toasted. So I think now is as good a time as any for story time. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Story time.
All right. So this is a thing we do on every podcast. We'll give you a minute to prepare. You know, think of your favorite moment in Amthgard, goofy story. We're gonna ask that you think about the statute of limitations. Don't incriminate yourselves. But beyond that, what's your craziest, goofiest, whatever Amthgard story that you've got? And we'll start with Gunn, because he looks positively serene right now, and I can't tell if he's awake. Oh, he smiled.
I'm just Asian, man.
Yeah, that thing you said was super, super
No,
rich.
he was holding so fucking still. I am worried that the Zoom call disconnected. That I was like, oh no, we lost him. Oh no, he moved. Okay.
So I actually, before you
Just
go,
the way
Gunn,
life look, Lucas. Come on, man. That's racist.
I'm gonna buy you a little bit of time here, Gunn, because I want to share a story about you that I don't know if your knight knows. So Gilan told a story earlier about the very first time he went to Clan, and he got pulled over. He got stopped by Border Patrol. What he may not know is that the very first time that Gunn and I went to Clan, we were in a car together. We got stopped by Border Patrol as well. The other group that was driving with us, because we were in a motorcade, carpool, whatever you want to call it, also got stopped. The people in that car were 3 white middle-aged men, and they had to take everything out of their car. All of the funny swords, all of everything, because the Border Patrol didn't know what was going on, right? So they thought that this was some kind of elaborate drug smuggling ring. We get pulled over. And we get pulled over first, and Gunn is asleep beside me in the car. And the guy goes, "Hey, is your friend there American?" I said, "Yeah, he's half Korean." He goes, "Oh, you speak English?" "Yeah, so if I wake him up, he's going to be able to say hello in English?" "Yeah." "Okay, you boys have a good day." We drive on, and we find out that Sir Stinkfoot, and Bill, what's Bill's name?
Decibel.
Yeah, and a couple of other people all get Decibel.
It's a play on words.
Yeah, I thought it was Decibel. Also, I'm not gonna lie.
They may call it something else, but that's exactly what he's going for. Like,
all of them get stopped, pulled over, and have to go through this big long thing. And I'm sharing the story with Gunn when he wakes up. As I came in, we got stopped by Border Patrol. He's like, "I didn't get shot." Woo! So, Gunn, what story do you have for us? I know I can think of a couple that you could tell.
That aren't incriminating?
Well, they're incriminating, but those people are already in jail. So,
and his speech there.
Shoot.
Tell us about you for a time when you were younger, you were getting into Amp-Guard, lived in a compound.
I can say World of Warcraft saved my life.
So unpack that for me. Because I've heard so many people say the opposite. Unpack that for me.
Yeah. Okay, so I was in the compound. The company I was in was Black Star at the time, and there was like 6 of us living in the house. At that point, they wanted me to be the prodigy because I was the top stick in our area at the time. And their main thing was I needed to learn whatever the triads had and teach it to the rest of them. All right.
You were the spy.
I pretty much at the time. And then one day we had organized days that we cooked food and we had to eat with the company or household at the time. And I was in the middle of a Molten Core raid and we're about to fight Ragnarok.
Ragnaros the Fire Lord, but yeah, it's fine.
Ragnarok is what my people do.
Ragnaros is the one that's like, too soon, Executus, and then he hits you with a big hammer.
We're starting that engagement, and then I got DC'd. I was like, what just happened? And I find out that they pulled the Ethernet cable to my computer, and because they were like, it's time to eat. I was like, you got to be shitting. So I quit the company at that point. Like that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. They could have done anything else but kill that raid for me because I was at that point next in line to get the Mage Blade.
Yeah.
So
okay,
how did
fair.
that end up saving your life?
Because me quitting the company within the next couple months, the company was arrested for kidnapping and bank robbery.
What the fuck?
The crazy part is they ended up extorting one of their most loyal members in the company because they found out that they were well off. Not rich, but well off.
See, so for those who can't see what we're doing, I just grabbed a Black Star sign out of Flo's garage, and now I'm worried that it was evidence. Should I like wipe the fingerprints? What's the deal?
No, this is a long time ago.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, they all ended up getting arrested. They tried to extort that one company member through ATMs. They wanted $200-something thousand. I was like, you understand they freeze it after a certain amount, right? They ended up letting go of the company member's fiance at the time. And that's how they ended up getting caught, because she just pulled the hood off of her head and read the license plate on the vehicle, and they just went to the person's house.
Jesus.
So, but the thing is, if they never would have done the kidnapping, they would have got away with robbing the Bank of Valdosta and the Domino's that they worked at.
Where they work?
Yeah, they robbed the place they worked.
Me quitting the company made it so I was never tied to that whole situation, because pretty much everybody that was in the Georgia region went to prison.
Jesus. I mean, okay, first off, as a fat dude, this was in what, 2002, early 2000s, I'm taking it?
2008.
Okay, so this is before Domino's fixed their formula. Their pizza sucked shit. Who robs a Domino's?
Well, I mean, they couldn't have got a lot of money.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Their pizza sucked ass.
Well, that's why they had to go somewhere else to rob
the bank. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so they started with the Domino's.
Two of them actually worked at the Domino's, so they knew the information to the safe.
Oh, my God.
So that was it. The deposit money went in for the night, and they stole that.
All $30.
Bank of Valdosta was such a hole-in-the-wall place, I didn't even know it existed until it came up on their spreadsheet of violations.
Jeez.
Jesus Christ.
Sir Danzig, you got a... you got a story you want to share?
I have the worst COVID cut ever.
No, I actually like your haircut, but the way you had it swept forward was straight up Dan. Got me.
Yeah, I've got like so many stories, but I think the one that's let's say for work is okay. So for a long time, I played at a park called Mystic Glade in Knoxville proper, and then after we killed that park because we traveled constantly and we were never there, we folded into a park called Radiant Valley, which is what we are to this day. Mm-hmm. But originally, Radiant Valley met at a park in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, which is the secret city where they, did the Manhattan Project and all that.
Yeah.
The park that we met at was on a corner. It was so anybody heckling us, because we were there every week, of course. They had like 2 full turns, right? 2 full straightaways, I should say, to heckle us from their car. And it would happen constantly some days, especially like in the summer. Kids weren't in school. They were taking daddy's car for a drive, and they would just heckle us. So people low on the totem pole socially would give the dregs at Amp Guard a hard time. And I'm always been an older player, like a senior player at the parks. And I would always tell the kids not to engage with them, because it doesn't matter what they do. We're the people that are identifiable. We're always there. Don't engage with them. There's some terrible things that have happened. Don't engage. I would always tell them that in good faith and honestly, just trying to keep them out of trouble and keep them from, getting these people, I don't know what they were going to do to them. But anyway, so one day it's no different than normal. There's kids going by, and there's a car that goes by and then makes a turn and hits us on 2 straightaways, and they're heckling us from their car. And I'm like, look, you guys, you can't pay attention to that stuff. But I was like really on edge that day anyway. The first car went by and I was okay. right? And I told them, I was like, guys, listen, I was really calm and collected. And I said, don't engage. That's what they want. They want to be out here doing this, but they're not brave enough. I would give them whatever they needed, right?
Yeah, right.
But the second car that day, they made it through one straightaway heckling us. It was especially bad. And then the second straightaway, they were still yelling, and I lost it. And I started yelling at him. I was like, turn daddy's car around, you assholes. Come back here and tell me what you're talking about. I don't know what the obscenities, but they actually stopped. They actually turned into the parking lot. So I'm running at that point. I'm leaving an entire park of people behind me. And I turn and I'm just running and I'm stripping gear off and I'm running at this car for what could only be at best high school kids. And I'm in my 30s at that time. And I'm just running at full speed. And I'm thinking about how I'm going to handle these 4 jokers that are getting out of this car. And I'm just running. And I jump the fence in, like a leap. And I'm just coming at them. And they see me and they've got this intent, like they're gonna fuck me up. And I'm like, cool, let's do this. I fight every week. Let's see what you do, right? And about the time I jump the fence, they go, oh shit, get in, go, let's go. And they turn the car around. They jump in real quick. A guy in the back seat's barely got his door closed. And they back out real quick and they keep going. And I'm just screaming at him, like, yeah, motherfuckers, you didn't want none of this. And I'm screaming. And I'm thinking, these guys are so intimidated by my war face, right? Like, Full Metal Jacket style. They're so intimidated by me that they didn't want any of me, the 4 of them. And I'm like, fuck you. And I'm screaming at them as they drive off. And I turn around and the entire park is standing right behind me. There's at least 20 people standing behind me. So like, it was hilarious. And like, I turned around and I kind of like, oh, it wasn't what they were afraid of. It was the 30 people that were coming at them, So that's the quintessential, like, little brother mentality. Like you can't, I can mess with my little brother, but you can't mess with my little brother, like that's what that was. And I love that story because it's really like these this ragtag band of people that have just happened upon Amtgard and are together for different reasons, but they're backing each other up. It's not what you should do for anybody listening. You should,
but if you have to.
Yeah, you should do the first thing I said and ignore them, because it doesn't matter. When they go tell the cops, they're going to be able to quickly identify the people dressed really dumb that are there every week and vilify them. You know what I mean? So don't do that thing. But I love that even the people that disliked me, which I'm sure there were many at the park, they were still there too. There wasn't a soul left in the dust. Everybody was behind me. So I really love that story as a kind of a wholesome, safe for work story to tell.
Yeah, that tracks. I like that. So before we roll out with the intro, do you guys have anything you want to plug? You are the last on our Sword Night month, and then I think we're moving to Serpent.
No, we were going to do Crown next because it'll be boring, and we want to put some exciting belts after it.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, is there anything cool that you guys want to plug or anything like that, or just shout out what you're working on, or is that it? I thought it froze again. No, that's perfectly fine.
That's
man.
just Gunn's face. That's what he looks like in a tournament too.
Right.
Well, I'm smiling when I heard him.
No, I just want to say, for people looking to like grow their fighting game, there's nobody better than Coach Tato to do that. He's got a lot of great resources. Anatol's really amazing with stab chats. Sir Sven, he has a channel. I can send you guys the link to post up with the video or whatever on those shots that I was talking about earlier. And you should definitely hit Warlord Gunn up for questions about how he worked on things and the kind of resources that he used.
I'll put his personal cell number in the show notes.
That's right. I'll give that to you.
865. No, I'm just kidding.
So yeah, and hit people up. I don't think I've as toxic as I've been in the past, I don't think I've ever turned anybody down that wanted to work on things that I've been at an event with or at a practice with. So
anybody actually,
that's right.
Regardless of the male, female,
whatever
age, doesn't matter.
Don't be afraid to lean on the people that know more than you, and don't
be intimidated by it. Don't be intimidated by them being a sword knight or a warlord. Ask. Yeah, worst thing they can say is not today.
Yeah.
Or no.
I'm really drunk right now.
I'm too drunk to taste this chicken. All right. Well, I'm going to plug one thing, and it's because we kind of committed to it in the Kodiak episode, but we are doing dude, that's on their page and everything. So there is a fundraiser currently going on in Dragonspine. To come full circle, I think it's Dragonspine for St. Jude's Children's Hospital. And if they raise, I think they're at like $1,100, $1,200 right now. If they get to 5,000, Flo here is going to shave his beard on stream. It's going to be tragic. So that's the only thing I want to pitch. Anything else, guys?
I can't think of anything.
Knowledge is all I can do.
Just to echo something that Sir Gilan said, we're at a point here in Tennessee, I won't speak for all of the other kingdoms, where we're going to be able to start meeting at some point in 2021. It's probably looking like it'll be closer to middle 2021. So a lot of the resources that Sir Gilan discussed, that Warlord Gunn discussed, the videos, different things that you can do at home to start kind of getting yourself back in shape, especially if you haven't been moving around a lot, now's the time to start doing it. And you can start small, and you can start with however much you can do at a single time, and start building back up, because coming back out and trying to fight at the level that you were if you haven't been doing a whole lot is how you get injured. And I don't want to see anybody injured. So take them up on those resources. Hit up Gunn's cell number once it gets posted into the show notes. Yep. Seriously, just talk to people. Talk to the sword knights, the warlords that we have. They're there to help out. They want to see better fighters, because better fighters for them means more fun overall for everybody. As the fighting moves up in the kingdom, as each person moves up, maybe that's a better way to say that, the skill level overall will increase, because the people that are bouncing off of you are going to get better too.
Yeah.
So
and Gunn is going to be a knight sooner rather than later. He's going to need a squire, and he just got a new place with looks like that's some pretty. You can move right in with him. I mean, continue the tradition, right? You need a roommate, Gunn? I'm trying to help you out here. What's your number again? I'll put it in the. No, we're good.
Can I be your squire?
Oh fuck! All right. With that, I'm going to roll us out. Thank you so much, guys. Hey everyone, thanks for listening. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on YouTube or Spotify to get notified about new episodes. And make sure to follow us on Facebook for announcements and more.